Okay, you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you. Alright guys, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon here after school while listening to a presentation, but hopefully this will be one that will definitely be informative for you. For my EDOL 647 class, I am going to present to you a presentation today over the effects of positive reinforcements on student behavior in the classroom. For my introduction, every day, and we all know that in our classrooms, we have very productive days. We have kids who are putting forth their best effort, kids who are behaving. You've got kids who follow your rules every day. However, not every day in the life of a teacher is a very pleasant learning experience. That's not always the norm. So classrooms are experiencing an increase of misbehaviors for students that are causing loss of teaching time. Raise your hand if you lost teaching time today based on, yes, so based on the student behavior. As well as just a lack of focus for the students in your classroom. So with school districts' budgets being cut the way that they have been, and we've experienced that here at our school and in our district, the way that they have, schools are looking for more cost-efficient ways to get kids to behave the way we want them to. So whenever they're asked the question of who is causing students to misbehave, if you ask students, a lot of times they blame these disruptions on basically just being unhappy with their teacher. They say that their teacher's unfair, or she's unprepared, or she doesn't care about them, or she's irritable that day. Teachers blame these distractions on students who are just being disrespectful, kids who are not following the rules, they're not putting forth their best effort, and just basically just aren't paying attention. But it's been questioned by lots of educators over the years, and I think we've talked about this in PLCs as well, how we can get behavior to improve in an easy and cost-efficient way. Basically, we want to alleviate these disruptions from our classrooms. So I performed a study for my class, and the purpose of this study is because we all know students are becoming harder to motivate. Bigger problems, bigger behavior problems are happening in the classrooms, and teachers really need to figure out if positive behavior supports, if they can motivate students to exhibit good behavior. Teachers really need to see data, because we all have talked about this lots of times before. We need data to show that something works. So we need data to support the use of positive behavior reinforcements in order to really buy into using these techniques in our classrooms. So as a school, here at Eastern Elementary, we really need to determine if positive behavior reinforcements are effective and determine if we're using them to benefit the students that we're working with. So my research question for this study was, in what ways do positive behavior reinforcements affect student behavior and positively impact classroom management? So I completed a literature review, and I read several different articles, journal articles, and research documents. Some of those that I found online, a lot of them I found on database. Basically, the topics that I really read a lot about were positive and negative reinforcements, basically students lacking intrinsic motivation, and just ineffective classroom procedures and expectations. And that's a lot of times falls on the classroom teacher for not being consistent. It was determined through this literature review that positive reinforcements and the ability to be intrinsically motivated had made impacts on student behaviors in past studies. It was also determined that teachers must be consistent in their classroom to make any set of procedures or expectations work. We always talk about that at the beginning of every school year, how we really have got to practice our procedures. We've really got to make sure that our kids know what to do at all times. So that's why Mr. Compton usually has us to spend the first 2 weeks of school really going over procedures, making sure that our kids know what to do. There seems to be a lot of information about positive behavior reinforcements, but the research that's been conducted in this study hopefully will kind of help fill some gaps for teachers in determining whether or not this is going to be beneficial. So the methodology that I used, the data that I used for this study was quantitative data, and that's basically data that shows using numbers. It's really cut and dry. The researcher, which is myself, looked at months of the year, days of the week, times of the day, and location surroundings when gathering and analyzing data. The population that I used was a an elementary-aged young man here in our school. In fact, he's in the 4th grade. I used him as my representative sample. And this student has shown a lot of problems in the classroom with behavior, getting his work finished, disrespecting his teacher, lots of those big behavior problems that we deal with quite a bit as classroom teachers in the past. So I'm looking to determine if utilizing positive behavior reinforcements could help to improve the student's behavior, hinder it, or whether it had no effect at all. The instrument that I've utilized is one that we use here at Eastern Elementary and have for several years, at least ever since I've been here, which is called the pause pad. And basically, that is simply just another form of the check and connect. On the pause pad, the student was given a numerical number of smiley faces as a goal per day. So the total goal that he wishes to reach by the end of the day is 80% out of 100, 80% of his smiley faces colored in by the end of each day. Each class was worth 3 faces. There are smiley faces, straight faces, and frowny faces to choose from. At the end of each class period, and those of you who do this with your students are already aware of this, but at the end of each class period, you need to sit down with your student and explain to him why.
Logan Gorbett, come to the office, please. Logan Gorbett.
Explain to him why you chose the face that you did based on his behaviors that he exhibited in your classroom that day. So I used this pause pad, and a face was chosen and colored in based on his behavior towards his goal during the class period. It was also predetermined that we were going to do a check-in midday with a person outside of his homeroom. So another person in the school, which was actually our literacy specialist, our RTI teacher, Miss Florence, here at Eastern, was his check and connect for the midday review. And that she just really met with him to help him to make sure that he was going to reach his goal, to talk about things that he needed to do to change his behavior if he wasn't going to reach it. So my analysis and procedures for gathering my data, and the procedures for collecting and analyzing data in this study incorporated, as I mentioned, the pause pad, or the check and connect. This data was collected and it was analyzed through the use of graphs and in the Swiss online registry from Mr. Bunch. He helped me to access that information.
I need Coaching and Rebecca. Come to the office, please. Ready to go. Coaching and Rebecca.
Pause pad data was tracked every single day, and this data was then compiled by the school's guidance counselor into a 30-day graph, which the Swiss program helped to compile, and then analyzed by me. So the results and the findings from my study. The first thing that I looked at was the number of days that the student had reached his goal of 80% or higher success on the pause pad. Over the 30 days that I conducted my research, and I basically did this over a 6-week time, so it was 5 days a week, 5 school days for 6 weeks, totaled out to be my 30 days, that I conducted this study. He reached his goal 17 out of 30 days. This totals out to be that he reached his goal 56.67% of the time throughout the course of this study. Now, this is only for the 6 weeks that I studied him. This is not for the past months of the school year. This is only for the 6 weeks that I completed my study. Prior to the research and the start of the pause pad with him, which he's not been on it for a very long time, prior to him starting, he was being seen in the principal's office usually on average about once a week for things such as, failure to complete work, just defying his teacher, interrupting his class, things that we experience on a regular basis were his big problem. By achieving a behavioral goal over half of the time, so the 56.67%, that really shows that this positive behavior support really did help to change his behavior. He really showed progress in that area. I then looked at the actual percentage distance from his goal of 80%. There was no specific trend in this data. The percentages throughout the 30 days really did fluctuate, so I really didn't see that there was a specific trend in this area of data, and I'm going to show you a table on the next slide that's going to explain that part. After collecting the data on this student over the 6-week period, it was determined that positive behavior supports, in particular the pause pad check and connect system that we use here, it was effective in increasing his behavior. His overall classroom behavior improved, and that was through an interview that I did with Mr. Bunch, our guidance counselor. and his classroom teacher, as well as him reaching his goal of 80% success 56.67% of the time. So here's my table. I actually did this into weeks so that it would better fit on the presentation. So I have 3 columns. The first column explains the week that we're discussing. The second column is how many days during that week did he meet his goal, and then the average weekly percentage of total points that he earned on his pause pad. And then the third column is the average weekly percentage distance from his goal. So obviously if there's a negative, then that means that he was negative 1.8, so he was 79.2%, so he was under his goal. So for week 1, he met his goal for 2 out of 5 days, and his average weekly percent of total points was 82.5%. So his average weekly percentage distance from his goal was a negative 1.8%. So each day I calculated how much of a percentage was he away from reaching the 80%. And so the average for week 1 was a negative 1.8%. For week 2, he met his goal 3 out of the 5 days, and his weekly percentage of total points was 77.8%. So obviously week 2 he did not meet his goal. However, he was only negative 2.2% away from his average weekly percentage from his goal. Week 3, he met his goal every single day, 5 out of 5 days. We were super proud. That was a big achievement for him. He met his goal every day, and his average weekly percentage of total points was 93.1%. So that means that he reached a smiley face on every class 93% of the time that week. He surpassed his goal of 80% by 13.1%. That was his average distance away from his goal each week. Week 4, he met his goal 3 out of 5 days and 75.9% of his points with a negative 4.1% distance away from his goal. Week 5, he had only met his goal 1 out of the 5 days, and there was 74.4% of his average weekly percentage of total points. And he had a negative 5.6% distance away from his goal. Week 6, the last week that I studied with this research, he met his goal 2 out of 5 days with 74.9% of his average weekly percentage of total points and a negative 5.1% from distance away from his goal. So my action plan, this is going to tell you what I plan to do with this information now that I've completed it. As a result of this study, I'm going to try to repeat the research study with a new student to really see if the results are different, and see if the results are the same. So does this really work, or is this just kind of work out? So I'm really going to try to do this again to see if I obtain the same results. I'm going to discuss the use of pause pads and other positive behavior supports with colleagues. So that's what I'm doing with you all right now. Administration and new teachers. I actually am hosting a student teacher in my classroom after Christmas, so I really hope to try to teach her about positive behavior supports after seeing that they really do work. I plan to try to use positive
Melissa Shaw, call me at
behavior
502, please.
supports
Melissa Shaw,
in the
call me at
classroom with
502.
new students who are struggling with behaviors, as well as the students that I currently have. I'm going to discuss with our administration the possibility of setting up a positive behavior support PLC for our class, for our staff, to obtain more information just about positive behavior supports and their benefits to students. And that hopefully will help me to learn some new ones that I may not already be using. And then asked to be a part of our target behavior team that looks at just behavior interventions and their success at our school. So in conclusion, this study was definitely one that I felt like that needed to be completed for the benefit of current and future teachers. I'm on year 5, so I still have several years to go, and I really feel like that this is something that I could implement each year, as well as teachers who are new to the profession. As students tend to like the intrinsic motivation, they like that being motivated by themselves. They're not motivated to do things just because they want to feel good. Teachers really have to look for, as I mentioned before, cost-efficient ways to motivate your students to perform in a desired fashion, whether it's behavior or academic. We've talked about that with K-Prep testing, ways how do we motivate our students to perform the way that we want them to, the way that they're able, they're up to their potential. This study provided data that supported utilizing positive reinforcement techniques and how they can truly affect student behavior in the classroom over time. And there are my references. Does anybody have any questions? Do you care to turn that